What's going on, guys? So I've got the a6400 here, and the title promised you a hack, and I've got one for you. All right, here we go. That is very annoying. Every time you move that camera, these little things, they click around and they're really annoying. So hack, painter's tape, or if you've got a huge budget, gaffer's tape. I don't have a huge budget. Look at that. No more. But now look at the rolling shutter. Alright, so I know it's not the most amazing hack ever, and I'm recording on both the GH5 and the a6400 now. But if you want to stick around for the rest of this video, I'm going to review the a6400 from the perspective of somebody who's used a GH5 for the past 2 years, and also a GX5 for a couple years. Alright, so I'm going to start with the good. Number one, autofocus is a dream. No matter what you want to be in focus is just in focus. Like instantly, there's hardly any delay, it never misses. It's even got AI autofocus, so you can tap on a thing and then it'll follow it around the screen magically. I've never had a camera with this good of autofocus, and if you know anything about the GH5, the autofocus on that system is terrible. In fact, just shortly after I got the GH5, I permanently disabled the autofocus and just stuck with manual focus. I appreciate having been able to learn how to manual focus and everything, but damn dude, sometimes you just want some manual focus. You just want it to look at whatever it's supposed to focus on and focus. Setting up a shot like this, I would never just take a shot of my eyes like this, but I mean, if I wanted to, it'd take 10 more seconds just to get the focus down. And if I'm not near enough to touch my camera, that's a whole back and forth process. So the autofocus really is amazing. Moving on from autofocus, let's talk about slow motion. Now the GH5 has slow motion, so does the a6400, but the a6400 can autofocus in slow motion, while the GH5, they're like, I don't think so. Anytime I'm using slow motion, I'm doing B-roll and I'm hand holding the camera, moving back and forth a little bit, and that's kind of when you want autofocus to really work. The fact of the matter is, autofocus working in slow motion makes my job easier. It means I have to spend less time trying to set up the focus before I can take the shot. Come on Panasonic, just turn it on. Now let's move on to the mic jack. Aside from that, the microphone built into the a6400, which I'm going to be talking out of now, really doesn't sound that bad unless you're doing like an A/B comparison between the in-camera microphone and like $1,000 microphone setup going into a mixer, going into another Zoom H6 thing. Now, if you are going to hand hold your camera, you could plug a lav mic in and that would strap to your shirt and that wouldn't block your screen. And I have seen some people do that. But basically, who cares where the hot shoe's placed? It's got a mic import. The colors out of this camera, I'm on the standard profile with no modifications, no adjusting contrast or whatever. The colors out of this camera on the standard profile look great. I don't have to do any color correction and I love the way the image looks. I've never gotten a clean image directly out of my GH5 that didn't require some type of correction. Same with the GX5. So not having to color correct all your footage is a huge plus. That's another time saver. The only thing you gotta do is make sure you set your white balance. There's a feature that you just click a button and then you take a picture of a gray thing and then your white balance is set. So spend a couple dollars and get yourself a gray card. Then you'll never have to worry about white balance or color correction again. Additionally, the camera weighs like next to nothing, so holding it out in front of your face for a long time, it's really easy. Additionally, it's got a flip out touchscreen, and if you want something else to be in focus, you can just touch it. And now I'm in focus. Ready, boom. The touchscreen for focusing is really handy, particularly because the focus works so well. Again, with the GH5 or pretty much any other Panasonic camera, I'm always having to manual focus. Another advantage for the a6400 is the file sizes are reasonably small. In part, that's due to the maximum bitrate settings that you can have, but I'll get to that later. For right now, you need to know if you're looking for a 4K camera, the a6400 is going to be a good option, particularly because the file sizes compared to other 4K files. I always like a camera that has USB charging available because basically when you're done for the day, you just take your camera over to your computer, you plug it in, It starts charging, you turn it on, swap the files out, turn it off, it'll keep charging. You never have to take the battery out of the camera. The GH5 has that too. It's actually a fairly common feature in these cameras these days. It's just something to mention that I really like that feature. One advantage to the screen being above the lens is that even if you're staring at yourself, as long as you're far enough away, it doesn't look like you're looking off to the side like on the GH5. It looks like you're talking to the viewers, and it just feels a little bit more natural. And because the sensor is ASPC sized, it's a little bit easier to get that wider field of view and that creamy bokeh background. There's probably going to be people arguing with me in the comments about how bokeh and ASPC versus micro four thirds and full frame work. I don't care. What I'm saying is it's easier to get the bokeh and it's easier to get the wide angles. Fight me. There's also no more 30-minute recording limit with this camera, so you can record for as long as the battery is going to last. I've seen people record up to an hour and a half with it. If you're trying to record like a multicam show or a podcast or whatever, something in a studio where it goes on for more than 30 minutes at a time, that's going to be a big deal for you. And finally, Sony has fixed all the overheating issues. I haven't seen one a6400 user have problems with overheating yet. Myself included. It has not overheated. And just like with any camera that has a lot of good things, and there's usually some bad things, particularly at the under $1,000 range. Number one is the rolling shutter, which is, if you handhold your camera and you vlog, you're gonna notice it, and it's gonna make your image look pretty bad. As often as possible, if you're using this camera, you wanna do some locked off shots or have a very steady arm or gimbal, because there's no in-body image stabilization, which will amplify that rolling shutter effect and just make all of your shaky footage look like jello. I think the file structure that Sony offers is a little bit weird because you have to like dig through to find your images, and then there's a bunch of XML files. Then you have to just select the video files to get those off the camera. I'm gonna put this on a tripod. Give me a second. There we go. Shots locked off, no more jello. We're good. Another kind of weird about the way the file storage works is every time you put in a fresh SD card, it does this thing where it says preparing file structure or something, and that takes like 20 seconds maybe. I mean, it's not a huge deal, it's just 20 seconds, but it's kind of weird. Like, I've never seen a camera have to prepare the image database before it even did anything. And second, every time you format a card on the Sony a6400, and I guess this is also true with other Sony cameras, it resets the file numbers. So if you're trying to make a video and you recorded a bunch of footage and then you go back and record a few shots of B-roll after formatting that card again, you have to manually batch rename all the files or save them somewhere else so you don't overwrite the files that you've already saved. It's just kind of a minor inconvenience, but I don't think that's an issue with the a6400 so much as it is an issue that I find with Sony. And apparently there's a workaround to fix it, but you have to like do some weird stuff and I don't want to deal with it. Another kind of weird thing with the a6400, and again, this might be true with other Sony cameras, is I put in an SD card. I tried to record 24 frames per second at 100 megabits per second. And it said that the SD card that I was using wasn't UHS-1U3 or UHS-2U3 compatible, and that I needed to use a compatible card. Again, that's 100 megabits per second, it couldn't do it. But that same card I've used in my GH5 for a long time, and I've recorded footage at 150 megabits per second. And I mean, sure, it's not UHS-U3 compatible, but it tried and it did it, and the card was capable of it. Sony just wouldn't even try. And I mean, that kind of sucks. Like, so if you're going from Panasonic to Sony and you've got cards that work for you, you may just have to buy new media, which that kind of sucks. I mean, maybe it has something to do with the codecs, maybe the file sizes are different, so it really couldn't do it, but I would like it to at least try and then spit it out and say, hey, this memory card sucks. And one last thing about the Sony is formatting cards with the camera takes like a minute. It takes like a really long time compared to any other camera I've used. I wouldn't expect it to take so long to format just a SD card. Should be easy. So the Sony's maximum megabits per second is 100. I mean, like 24 or 30 frames per second at 100 megabits. The Panasonic GH5 can record it up to 400 megabits per second, which is, it's a lot higher. It's also a more expensive camera. Now, personally, on the GH5, I've only ever, other than in testing, really used 100 megabits per second because I don't want giant ass file sizes. So with the GH5, what I've been using for the past year in all my videos, so if you're one of my subscribers, you know what my videos look like, they've all been recorded at 100 megabits per second. So Panasonic's minimum 4K megabit per second setting is what I use, and Sony can match that. at 24 frames per second with 100 megabits. So the image data should be the same coming out of these two cameras from what I'm used to. Now, if you have different needs than me, you might need something that can offer a higher bitrate, but I don't need that. And also, if you just want to pick up the Sony a6400 because it's got a larger sensor than whatever micro four thirds camera you might have been used to, you're forgetting that lenses cost money, and the kit lenses have a pretty slow little itty bitty f number. F3.5 is the widest this one will go that it came with. This is the 18 to 135. So if you want that sweet bokeh and you want that, really nice looking image, you're also gonna have to buy another lens, one that's got a wider aperture. And also, I guess the low light is a little bit better with pretty much any Sony camera. So if you don't have a ton of lights, I know I have lighting, but if you don't have lighting and you're looking for the minimal investment to make great videos, then a Sony camera will afford you some dollars on having to buy a bunch of lights because it has better low light performance, and what you have around your house might already work for you. So compared to the GH5, the Sony a6400 is a much better vlogging camera because it has a mic input, it's got way better autofocus, you can actually flip up and see the screen, and particularly if you have a steady hand or you like to set the camera down a lot. The GH5 does have in-body image stabilization. That's really its only saving grace. Now, what nobody's really talking about is as a studio camera. The a6400 is a fantastic studio camera. You don't have to worry about rolling shutter because you're not always moving around your camera. It's usually locked off on a tripod of some kind. The autofocus is amazing. So if you're trying to show things off, it's no problem. It's got great color as long as you set your white balance. Generally, you're gonna have your lighting already prepared, so you don't have to worry about doing any color correction. And it's got slow-mo at 120 frames per second, so you can still do sweet B-roll, particularly if you have a gimbal on hand. So this camera really is meant to get you into content creation, or upgrade your video quality while making it easier to shoot. The AI autofocus for video and animal eye tracking is incredible. Yeah, you can track dogs and cats and stuff too. Now the AI autofocus and animal tracking autofocus is amazing. It's a little bit lost to the rolling shutter, but as long as you're not whipping your camera around like I was earlier, then it shouldn't bother you. Almost every camera has a rolling shutter of some kind, unless you have an expensive cinema camera that has a global shutter. I don't own one. The price point is really perfect for where it's at, and ideally other camera manufacturers should aspire to release a camera with as many features as what Sony has done in the a6400 for under $1,000, because that's what this camera costs, about $899. About exactly $899. As a B cam, it crushes my GX85 into the ground. Now, yeah, the GX85 you can get brand new for $400, $500, and I've made a lot of videos about that camera. Sure, the GX85 is a little bit more than just half the price, but it delivers a lot less than half the features, particularly because it's so old. And at that price point, the a6400 is probably one of the best tech reviewer cameras that there is right now. So in spite of its few shortcomings, the a6400 is a killer B camera, particularly for under $1,000. It's $899, and you can't buy more camera than that for that price, at least not right now in 2019. So if you want to pick up yourself an a6400, there's a link to it in the description of this video. If you buy it through that link, I'll get a tiny commission because it is an affiliate link, and that will help support my channel so I can make more videos like this one. In my next video, I'm gonna see if we can upgrade my Sony wireless body pack with a $100 microphone and see how much better it sounds. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.